When we when we have strong feelings like loss, the sensation of loss can feel overwhelming in a way that we separate or seem to have this experience of the one who has lost, who is seemingly separate from the one who also has not lost, who is whole. And when we are able to bring the light of our awareness into the sensation of loss, and we can stay with the one who feels like they have lost, we may watch the sensation of loss also turn into another sensation, emotion like grief. And if we can continue to hold the wholeness of ourselves while having the experience of the idea of the separate one that wants to pull us into the idea of individuation, we might also start to see how the wholeness of ourselves is illuminating and transforming the sensorial experience, and that the grief that we are experiencing turns into the grief of the stories we've created that we're now asked to let go of. The grieving of the separate one themselves as the one that we're asked to put on the altar. The pain and the suffering of the one as we remain now in the totality of our experience without sacrificing our wholeness to the one. Who would take everything from us. In a way, these are archetypes. In a way, these are ideas. In a way, these are experiences. In a way, these are a somatic inner journey towards inner reclamation of the fullness of self, where we start by our own experience to bring again wholeness and fullness, to bring the truth into our experience of the idea of separation, where when we can look at it like an idea, we can hold it in a different way. where the truth then can start to illuminate the idea in a different way, where we can start to experiment like a scientist within the facets of our own inner landscape without taking anything, even my words, to mean truth. If not, your own authority to demonstrate to you with your own openness and your own willingness to explore for yourself the source of my words within your own inner landscape. And of course, that's a choice. When we can allow ourselves to leave the stories that we've inherited and the ones that we've also perpetuated within ourselves, the fears that may arise within us of what that may look like to leave a collective field that would seemingly individuate us. The fears that may arise of the ideas of not belonging any longer to the world, to relate with others, until we sit in the challenge of those within ourselves and see the false within it, to experience within us how the beliefs in those fears would actually keep us from the fullness of ourselves. And in reality, in my experience, would keep us from uniting, from seeing in the totality of our fullness of ourselves, that we are more the same than we are different, that there are more that is alike than it is not alike. And when we stop feeding form in the superficiality of what we look like to tell us what is truth, and we allow ourselves to experience more of what's behind the form, as what is alive and living within us, as the sameness of what's alive and living within the all of everything. We pendulate. And the pendulation between the fullness of self and the smallness of self, the totality that includes the smallness, but is not the smallness. We can generate and perpetuate confusion. This identity of the smallness that has inherited with it the stories keep it limited to the bigger picture of what it is. And this big picture is still a mystery. So the invitation in this moment is when you are feeling something that pulls you into small thinking, small being, into separating from yourself to become aware this is happening. To choose to allow yourself to have the experience, yet from the bigness of yourself. That's holding the smallness of yourself. Where that bigness may feel like a hug or a holding, where whatever's arising within it is completely okay because I've got you. Yourself has got yourself. And to allow your unfolding within that to happen, to watch what arises within the story like loss, that transitions into grief, that transitions into the one who has the story and the idea of separation, of the love that's in all of that. Then to allow yourself to be the all of that, where there's no longer just the holding, but the isness of the totality of the experience, where we've again laid ourselves at the altar. Where it's just the arising happening. That we're observing and we're experiencing simultaneously, and yet it's not pulling us into a story to create in the world that which would perpetuate our own suffering. For if we are to continue to believe in separation as our identity, we would. Yet also until we ourselves arrive at the same conclusion, by inviting ourselves into the fullness of our experience, we continue to generate these ideas and stories as truth. So here's my invitation. And our remembering together the fullness of our expression, and that all of it is worth loving. And that starts with ourselves. Thank you for being with me today.